All right. Hello and welcome everyone to our monthly community Ayurveda workshop. So in today's class, these monthly workshops have been, for the last couple of years now, have been centered around psychology, mental emotional wellness, Ayurvedic psychology, and perspectives to transform and heal trauma. And in this month and in upcoming months, I'm starting to take a little bit of a new angle so that we can start to look at the influences of specific biohealth markers and how that relates to our mental emotional well-being. And my dear sister, a friend of mine, Prema Mai, and I both just got back from some traveling where we led some women's retreats and also co-ed retreats where we spoke on hormonal balance, and we did meditation and guided practices, and we talked about authentic voice expression and getting in connection with our true self. We guided people into a deep experience of that while weaving in these topics of Ayurveda. And so this topic was really alive for me, having just come back from leading those retreats and workshops and meditation immersives. And I decided this would be a great time to bring this to my community, to all. And so for those of you who showed up live, thank you for being here. Thank you to those of you who are listening to this on a recording too. So we're going to explore this topic of hormonal balance, hormonal harmony, and how it relates to our mood and our emotions and all of that, but really specifically how you can impact and make change in your daily self-care practices to support the overall harmony of your hormones. And it's just going to be important. It unlocks so much when we learn the Ayurvedic perspective on this, and really just opens our awareness so that we don't feel like we have to micromanage these tiny little, microscopic hormonal markers. Rather, we're going to zoom out today and look at the overall harmonizing of what we call hormones and understand the main interplay of the main categories in which our hormones, whether we're in a female or male body, whatever body you're in, you have fluctuating hormonal levels. And as a result of those fluctuating hormonal levels, we need to understand where we are on this spectrum of duality in terms of which types of hormones are front and center and controlling our mood, controlling our digestion, controlling our physiology and our health and our energy levels and our ability to sleep, etc. And which of those hormones are stressing us out, making us go into fear, making us, feel depleted and fatigued and giving us insomnia and anxiety, etc. So there's actually a spectrum. These two interplay. And when we learn how to unlock that, we can take an approach that is so much more intuitive and really beyond the micromanaging of these things. So I hope that makes sense so far. And for those of you who are interested in, excuse me, for those who are interested in learning more deeply about this topic, I plan to bring my friend Prema Mai weaving into this conversation so we can go deeper. So if you're interested in more female hormones and transitions into having graceful transitions of perimenopause, menopause, or just having a healthy cycle, preparing for childbirth, those types of things, then if this is of interest to all of you in this community, then I will have her on and we'll have some more conversations. We'll lead some online classes together, and I will be happy to lead more classes going deeper into this topic so you're empowered with more of the self-care perspective and what to do to bring balance yourself. And then, of course, this is a generalized educational format. So if you are wanting more specific personalized steps that you should take, like a roadmap for your personal health situation, you're always welcome to reach out to me one-on-one. And if you're watching this as a recording, you can click the link to book a one-on-one session with me, and I'll share that with all of you live as well. But for now, let us open with a little bit of an invocation prayer, and we're connecting to the lineage and origins of Ayurveda and allowing the wisdom of Ayurveda to come through us into this conversation. And then we'll dive into today's topic. So let us go ahead, and if you're in a comfortable seat, just take a few deep breaths to center and ground yourself, maybe breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Letting any tension melt away in your system, feeling the bottom half of your body really root and ground into the support beneath you. And then feeling the upper half of your body feeling light and buoyant, and very naturally and peacefully kind of elongating and reaching up to the sky above. And then one more breath of just wholeness and connection to your heart. And if you'd like to chant Om with me, you're welcome to. Just connecting to that essence of wholeness and the divine within. So if you want to do that, take a deep breath in, exhale all the air out. And then another full deep breath in, exhaling with Om, and then I'll sing the invocation prayer. Namami Dhanvam Harimadi Devam Surasurirvandita Pada Padam Loke Jararu Hayamrityunashanam Dhataramisham Vividoshadinam. Om Dhanvantare Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. So as we approach this topic of hormonal harmony, we want to first relate to the understanding that we are nature. Nature exists within us, and we are an inherent part of nature as a whole. That is exemplified through our very breath. So as you inhale, you are receiving nourishment. And as you exhale, you are giving nourishment to others outside of you. And this is metaphorical and literal. The plants breathe in what we exhale, and we breathe in what the plants exhale. So first and foremost, this little microcosmic cycle of exhale, of giving, of inhale, of receiving is aligned with all the rhythms of nature that we are part of. And so there is no out breath without in breath. There is no in breath without out breath. And there is not one or the other that's more important than the other, right? And there's one universal truth in this microcosmic cycle of nature, is that the in breath will always follow the out breath, and the out breath will always follow the in breath, meaning the seasons of life will always be in fluctuation. And if you are in one season, the next season is what comes next. So we can be patient with the season we are currently in. So this is analogous to the 24-hour cycle of the sun each day, which does govern an aspect of our hormonal and neurotransmitter function, which is responsible for our mood, which is responsible for the abilities of our digestion, which is also responsible for the quality of our sleep at night, so much more. But this turn of the in breath is like the nighttime. So the in breath is when you are rejuvenating, you're inhaling, you're absorbing, you're resetting, you're cleansing. Your inner bodily systems are cleansing during this time. So while you sleep, it's the same as taking a big, deep inhale overnight. And then at the transition between the inhale and the exhale, the sun is the dawning of the new light. So the sun is starting to peek over the horizon, and now the fullness of your exhale comes the day, and that's the fullness of the sun in the sky, which triggers hormones and chemicals in your body that allow you to feel awake and alert, and it releases chemical digestive enzymes in your gut that prepares you to digest, absorb, and assimilate nutrients from the foods that you eat. And so this is kind of synonymous or analogous to the exhalation. And the exhalation comes to an end, which is the sunset. And the sun sets, and then your energy starts to go from outward, just like the out breath. Your energy starts to go from outward, and it starts to turn inward. And you know, your energy goes within, you feel heavy, you feel sleepy. This is when melatonin is released in your blood, in your body. And this is when the cleansing mechanisms of your body start to turn on, and the repair mechanisms of your body start to turn on. And so, okay. And so this cycle of 24 hours, the way the sun moves, when the sun is above the horizon, your energy moves out. That's when you're in the day, you're external, you're productive, you're doing things, you're giving to others, you're serving others, you're active. And then at night, this energy moves internal. So when the sun goes behind the horizon, your energy starts to go internal, and the pull of the sun releases melatonin in your bloodstream, which is a hormone that makes you feel sleepy and drowsy. And it's a call for your energy to turn within. And then once you allow yourself to follow that call for the energy to turn within, it is now able to cleanse your blood, detoxify any external toxins you've been exposed to during the day, finish the digestive process. Hopefully the digestive process is complete during the daylight hours, so that by the time it gets to night, the body can just cleanse and purify. And sometimes it's not, so it has a harder time at night. We'll get into more of that in a little bit. But this is the time where body's repairing and cleansing itself. So this 24-hour cycle has a major influence on your waking hormones and your feelings of alertness and aliveness, and also your sleepy hormones and those that make you feel rest and calm. Then the lunar cycle is a 28-day cycle. If we were drawing this on a whiteboard, there'd be rungs, your in-breath, and then the 24-hour cycle, and then the 28-day lunar cycle. Now, this affects all bodies, regardless of gender, in terms of hormonal fluctuation, but it's most easily analogous to a female body's hormonal rhythms. And so the full moon is similar to like the energy is all outward, and the full moon is connected to metaphorically and physiologically to a woman's ovulation. So during the full moon is when the womb, it has its full endometrial lining and all its hormones are enhanced and it's ready to conceive new life in the form of a child. And when that doesn't happen, the full moon wanes, means gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you can't see it anymore. So it goes from the full moon cycle waning all the way down to the new moon. And the new moon is also called the dark moon because it's the phase of the moon that you can't see it in the sky. So this is metaphorically connected to our sleep time, when our nighttime, the dark time, it's when energy is internal. It's also a cleansing time for a female body in her childbearing years. It's a cleansing time. So as the moon wanes from full to new, wanes, gets smaller, it's also indicative of the sloughing off of that endometrial lining and getting it ready to shed. So as the body's getting ready to shed, it works with the other aspects of the body's cleansing mechanisms at nighttime. And so it carries, we have female bodies have an additional opportunity to cleanse that is aligned with this 28-day cycle. And those emotions and physical materials that are metabolic waste products, for instance, are carried to that lower part of the womb so that it can be released. And so this can be an emotionally confronting time for some. And if we don't have the tools to understand or to let those go, then it can be an irritating time. Reasons why it can be an irritating time, but we'll just start with that. Because this rhythm is, again, energy is moving outward and during the full moon, and then energy needs to withdraw and move inward to cleanse and purify during this new moon phase each month. Then after the new moon passes, it starts waxing, meaning it's getting bigger and bigger again in the sky. And then it reaches the tipping point, which is the first quarter moon, when you see the moon and it looks like a half moon shape. That's kind of analogous with the sunrise time. So it starts to peak over and then it gets fuller and fuller and fuller. So in the same way that our energy moves outward into giving and productivity and doing and engaging with the external world, including digestion, absorption, assimilation of nutrients during the out breath, analogous with the daytime, analogous with the full moon time, or when the moon are in the phases that you look in the sky and you see a lot of white. Those are the times associated with this phase of the cycle. And then that's the breath, the 24-hour sun cycle, and the 28-day lunar cycle. And then the other times, energy is you're receiving, you're needing to rest, you're needing to fill up your gas tank, so to speak. You need to restore your energy. You need to cleanse internally. And so that's happening both at nighttime and during this lunar phase of more darkness. Energy's internal. Now we can stretch this microcosm, macrocosmic analogies, cycles, one rung wider, which brings us into the seasonal rhythms. So the seasonal rhythms are your 365-day cycle. And during this time, we have spring, which is the dawning of a new day, which is associated with sunrise. And from the spring, energy starts to rapidly move above the ground in the plants into their flowering and fruiting, which is the high summer associated with the full moon and associated with high noon of the day. And then comes the harvest time at the end in fall, and then fall transitions with the sunset, much like the sunset and the waning moon. Energy starts to turn internal in the earth around you, meaning the energy leaves the leaves, leaves the branches and the external parts of the plant, and they start to go into the roots. Now, all winter long, we look at our plants in our garden or the trees and the nature around us, and we're like, it looks like nothing's happening. So we end up having this relationship with ourselves too, and we judge ourselves for needing to take rest, right? Because we feel like I'm not being productive enough. And this is a big take-home message of this class of hormonal harmony, is that you cannot expect the flower of your hormones to be in full blossom 365 days a year. Maybe if you live somewhere tropical, but even if you live near the equator where the plants are always doing, it seems like there's always an abundance of ripe, fresh things. The plants still go through their mini cycles where energy goes to the roots and then energy comes to the flowers. And it just doesn't look the same as it does in, places further away from the equator, like where I live in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon State, USA. We have a full 4 seasons. And there were plants in my garden just this last year that I was like, oh no, they're dead. They're never coming back. I'm not going to be able to get them in the ground soon enough because I still had them in pots. And then, wouldn't you know it, they were doing their work over the winter and I couldn't tell if they were still alive. And the work that they do internally, when your energy is internal, is just as important as the work that you see externally in terms of rebuilding and restoring and cleansing. So that's just one quick little note on our tendency to try to keep up with a hyper solar society that acts in every part of the world as if it should be living in the equator, like where productivity, and Joanne said our culture is very yang. Exactly. So we have this relationship with yin, which is the rejuvenative principle where energy turns within. We have this relationship with yin that we judge ourselves for being lazy or whatever, that we can't rest, or we just have a hard time being what seems inactive. And a lot of the women I work with, or clients in general, I'm like, if you feel the draw to take a nap, it's the most productive thing you can do, because otherwise you're throwing your hormones out of whack by pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to keep up with that yang culture, like Joanne said. So understand that these rhythms are inherently a part of you. There is no use at berating and shaming the tomatoes in your garden for not producing flowers and fruits all winter long. In the same way that that's absolute insanity, do not berate and shame yourself for not taking that time to rest and fill up. So these microcosmic, macrocosmic cycles start to give us a hint that we're part of nature. Nature is a part of us. We are inherently woven. We are cut from the cloth. We literally are nature. There's no difference or separation between us. There are unique ways that the nature externally manifests itself physiologically in a human organism. And so if we take that rung out one more level wider, macrocosmic level, then we see juxtaposed on top of the breath cycle, the 24-hour sun cycle, the 28-day moon cycle, the 365-day seasonal cycle. Now we look at the entire span of our lifetime as human beings, where the nighttime or the winter time, or the dark moon, is wherever we came from before our soul entered this human body. When our soul enters the human body or is born, it's the sunrise. So early childhood, your early childhood of development is early springtime, is the early morning time. And the middle of that, so you grow up through the increasing of the sun in the sky and through the springtime, and then the sun time, the solar time, the summertime is analogous with the middle of one's life, where they're most productive, active, raising a family, working, contributing to society, learning, studying, absorbing information from outside, digesting that information, building and growing things. And then the elderly wisdom years of life are to be embraced as wisdom years, where you are harvesting the lessons of a full life lived, and that you can offer those fruits to others. But ultimately, your energy starts to turn internal and reconnects more deeply with your spiritual connection, into that place from which you came, that you will return back to. So this is beautiful, poetic, gorgeous insights that Ayurveda gives us to see this deep, beautiful connection that we are a slice of nature, that we are an extension of nature. And so now we need to take this next step of understanding the hormonal cycles through this lens and look at, well, then what does that mean therapeutically if I'm experiencing hormonal imbalance? And there are lots of different experiences that one can be having if they do have a hormonal imbalance. And most people in the westernized, world today do experience hormonal imbalance. In fact, by the time we get to, the way that hormones work over a lifespan, the way that our culture lives their life, it decreases hormones because we've habitually learned to override our naturalness. We've habitually learned to override the essential, authentic expression of our natural body and our beautiful soul. We have habitually made choices that repress or suppress, whether that's consciously or unconsciously, the truest part of us, the youthful part of us, because our spirit is eternal and youthful and ever creative and ever loving and ever inspired. And so if we're starting to feel jaded by life, if we're starting to feel dry, it's simply a sign or a symptom that something has been overridden in your naturalness. And to reclaim that spiritual essence, to reclaim that soulful connection to your heart and to your way of living, and is the core of what actually rebalances the hormones. And there are physical things to do too, but that is the keystone. So in the upcoming weeks, I'd like to bring my dear friend Prema Mai, because she specializes in that spiritual piece. And we can talk more deeply about how to find your spiritual path, in whatever way is most unique and authentic to you and your cultural lineage and your family lineage. And so those will be some future conversations. Again, if those are things you're interested in, please let me know in the comments or email me, so that I can make sure to bring more of that topic to you if it's something that interests you. But this is like keystone. Even in Ayurveda, we say samadosha, samagnisha, samadhatu malakriyaha, Prasanatmindriya manaha swasta ityabhidiyate. So that beautiful sutra, it goes through all the layers of our physical biohealth and energetic health, our pranic health, and our organs, and our ability to cleanse and eliminate toxins out of our body. It goes through all of these physiological markers, but it sums everything up with saying health, true health, resides in knowing who you are. True health resides in an identity, and that's a spiritual process. And that's also just a reclamation of your power, your voice, and your choice. Your power, your voice, and your choice. A reclamation of your power, voice, and choice. A reclamation of your authenticity. A reclamation of that which is most essentially true to you. And it goes further to describe that we have a healthy relationship with our mind. Prasana, Atma, Indriya, Manaha means we experience some level of stability and lightness when it comes to our emotions, when it comes to the things that we feed our senses, which is a whole nother topic for a whole nother class in and of itself, what we feed our senses, because these are all forms of nourishment. What you feed your senses, what you feed your mind, the relationship that you have to your mind and emotions and the thoughts, the 400,000 thoughts, what is it, 40,000 thoughts that you have a day. I think that's what Dr. Ladd has quoted, 40,000 thoughts a day or a minute, something like that. Something crazy. No, it's not 40,000 a minute, but it's a lot, right? And if any of us get quiet and still enough to learn how to meditate, we know that all those thoughts that flit across the awareness, there's a lot of them. And so we have to be in relationship to all of those thoughts that are conjured up from current stimulation of the senses, and also thoughts, feelings, emotions from experiences of the past, many of which go undigested as we just try to survive this life and get through and, take care of our basic human needs. In that is part of how we start to disassociate from our true self. And then we find ourselves pushing beyond our naturalness and our natural body's needs. And so Ayurveda says the true definition of health, yes, it's all of these physical and energetic and mental, emotional markers of health, but it's also the healthy relationship that you have to your mind and your senses and your soul, the essence of your spirit in this body, and that it all is governed by your personal sense of identity, which is what I was saying earlier about this reclamation of your power, your voice, and your choice. And especially if I do a lot of trauma healing work. And so a lot of times people experience a lot of the symptoms in this list of hormonal imbalances, but there's an emotional connection that stemmed from early childhood where their needs weren't met emotionally, or there was an actual trauma that never became metabolized in the system. And so it starts to take over as an identity. And the whole physiology in your body, including your fluctuating hormones, acts in response to this core identity that is usually buried in your unconscious and your subconscious. So in order to reclaim, power, voice, and choice, the identity of a child who was violated or hurt and had experienced a trauma in some way, even if it was like a more subtle trauma, like emotional neglect or things like that, it's usually internalized in a way that they don't even realize that they feel they don't have a choice. So because choice was taken over and their caretakers or other influencing entities in their life, were louder and didn't help them learn how to trust their inner voice. So then later as adults, we have to be like, whoa, I never learned to trust my inner voice. My inner voice has been formed by someone or something outside of me. So we have to build that muscle of trusting the quiet whisper within that is really the true essence of your naturalness, of your authenticity, of your soul, of your atma, of your spirit. And that part of you is eternal, ever patient, and it has nothing to prove, like the external voices that maybe tried to control us or that maybe self-sabotage us now internally. Those voices have an agenda. They have something to prove. And so they become louder. And that other voice is still there saying, oh, I know, I knew that was not right. I knew I shouldn't have made that choice, but I did it anyway. Why did I do it? Okay, I want to trust my inner prompts more next time. But it's a muscle that we have to build. So we have to remember that we do have a choice now. And part of this process of hormonal harmony and healing our spirit, mind, body complex is to come into healthy relationship with listening to that inner voice, which always has the answer. It always has the answer, but it whispers. So sometimes we need to learn practices, not sometimes, we pretty much always need to learn and engage with some kind of practice every single day that quiets those loud voices, or at least has them step back for just long enough that we can hear the true inner voice speak from within. And then we have our North Star. Then we have our guiding light that will always knows what to do and what action to take. So we never have to be confused and overwhelmed. So this is actually a really, really big part of hormonal harmony, is to learn how to come into relationship with that quiet guiding voice within. So the quiet guiding voice within will always show you, will be able to assess clearly which side of these spectrums you're in and how to bring them back into therapeutic balance. Now, what Ayurveda does is it codifies this spectrum so that you can understand it and you have language for it. Once you understand it and have language for it, now your inner self can navigate within these realms and it's more clear to communicate with you. Plus, the other thing is when there is significant hormonal imbalance in the body and excess dosha, as we call it in Ayurveda. So when there's excess dosha, or you're in stage 4, 5, or 6 of Samprapti, which is the 6 stages of disease progression. When you're in stage 4, 5, or 6, then the voice of the imbalance is the one that's constantly prompting you. And so you need an external voice, external mirror that is clear and true and a little bit systematized, like in this case of Ayurveda, to be able to follow steps that that deliver you in the place of then being able to hear your natural voice. But if you are experiencing hormonal imbalance, and I'll give you some symptoms of that, if you are experiencing those hormonal imbalances, then it's very likely that the voice of the imbalance is speaking to you more loudly. So then you have to learn this next model that I'm going to show you right now so you can understand where to apply the principles of therapeutic opposites. Okay, so a few little list of symptoms of hormonal imbalance could include blood pressure being high or low, cravings for sugar or sweets, cravings for excessively salty foods, cravings for junk foods or comfort foods, extreme weight loss or weight gain that's really hard to shed, also a lack of energy overall, so fatigue, brain fog. If the hormones are imbalanced, you can also experience almost like an inability to slow down. When our stress hormones take over, it kind of revs us into high gear, and they kind of take on a character of their own. So it's hard to regulate your nervous system. So if you're finding yourself in a hyper regulated state where it's hard to fall asleep at night, hard to unplug, hard to be move through the day in like a peaceful way, you always feel a little frantic, you always feel a little bit kind of strung out, or your mind is confused because it's so overwhelmed and anxious. These are all signs of potential hormonal imbalance. Also, just feeling of moodiness, where there's a natural relationship with mood where sometimes you just don't have control over your moods. But when the moods start really controlling you, that's also a sign of hormonal imbalance. An inability to concentrate. Maybe you get sick a lot, your immunity seems compromised, you feel very susceptible to everything around you. We already mentioned sleep, also low libido, or any kind of perimenopausal or menopausal symptoms in women going through those stages. Also, really significant PMS symptoms in the anywhere from 2 to 14 or more days before a woman's menstrual cycle. She might have extreme, moods, emotions, irritabilities. And so if any of these are resonating, then you're in the right place. So I wish I made you a diagram for this, but that's okay. I'm going to have you draw it out. So if you have a piece of paper and you're taking notes, you simply just draw a line down the center or fold your paper in half. So you have 2 columns. And this is the yin and yang of Ayurveda. We call it in Chinese medicine yin and yang. In Ayurveda, it's brumhana and langana. Brumhana is like almost like brum. It's funny because the sound R in the English language is a vowel in Sanskrit, so it can be confusing, but you can just write it BRM, brum, kind of like broom, like that you sweep with, but brum without the O's. Brumhana means building, nourishing, increasing. This is all yin, same concept as yin. Building, nourishing, increasing. Anabolic, tissue is enhancing, restoring, rejuvenating. These are all some of the verbs that would go under the yin side of your diagram. Yin side of the diagram is also considered lunar, and it's feminine, and it's cool and nourishing. Cool, watery, nourishing. Then on the other column, this is the yang side. The yang side in Ayurveda, instead of yang, we use the word langana. Lung, like lung, but instead of the lung that you breathe with, it's a lung with an A, but it's still pronounced langana. Lung, like you breathe with, A-N-A, langana. So langana is on the solar side of the spectrum. So as opposed to the lunar, langana is solar, langana is masculine, langana is catabolic, langana is decreasing, depleting, diminishing, and it is energy out. Yin and brumhana are energy in. Yang and langana are energy out. Now remember, neither one of these, there's no good, bad, right, wrong. So eradicate all labels of black and white, good, good, bad, right, wrong out of your mind entirely. We are giving you here a new way to a new language that's more refined than good, bad, right, wrong. So you don't need to be like, oh, is apple cider vinegar good or bad for health? It's everything in Ayurveda is time based on time, place, and circumstance. And the application of any substance in Ayurveda is based on this graph that I'm giving you right here of Brahmana and Langana. So apple cider vinegar, it's more on the spectrum of Langana because it is scraping to the channels. And it's solar because it's very heating. I don't know why I said apple cider vinegar. It's just an arbitrary thing that popped in my head. So understanding these opposites. So because Langana is solar, it's also hot. And so this is the principle of also cleansing and diminishing, decreasing. So basically, we are in a yang stage or a Langana stage when the energy is moving outward. So everything that is an exhale, full summer, full midday, high noon, and full moon, right? All of those times on the earlier microcosmic, macrocosmic graph that we described, all of those are considered more Langana because our energy, like if you equate it as simply to like a gas tank in the car, you're driving the car, you're in motion, you're in movement. This solar energy is in movement. It invokes movement and heat and energy expenditure. It's Langana. So you're driving your car. It's inherently depleting. There's nothing wrong with it because we're not saying depleting in the sense of, oh, I'm so depleted. But if you don't fill up the gas tank in the car and you keep driving and you're like, no, this car should be able to keep going without more gas, which is what we do to ourselves, psychologically, emotionally, when we're like, we shouldn't have to rest. I shouldn't have to take a nap during the day. Some days of the month, some days of the year, you just need more sleep. Like the wintertime, you sleep more. Like, when your energy is low, you need a little reset. Even before I taught this class, like all day, we were out in our field because it's the springtime and we had a lot of work to do on the earth in the garden beds. And before this class, like I was like, I know I'm going to need a reset. I can't just run in from outside and, keep pushing and expect to just jump on this class and feel energetic. So I laid on my biomat, which what's called a phi mat, which is just like an earthing pad, a warm earthing pad. And I just totally resetted for like 20 minutes. And then my energy was like, I was like, fill up the gas tank. Okay, now I can also transition from one activity and mental way of being into another activity and mental way of being. So I encourage yin. So we can't expect that we're just going to drive the car and we only get completely depleted when our tank is literally empty, which means sex hormones, the yin hormones are the building, nourishing fluid compounds of the body that help increase your energy. They help you feel really good. They help you feel energetic, clear-minded, etc. They help you build muscles and tissue, and they help you feel enthused for life. They are responsible for healthy immune function. So these are the sex hormones. So the sex hormones all fall under the category of yin or brahmana or lunar. And those sex hormones replenish when you are doing things that deliberately fill your tank back up. So these are yin, these are brahmana. And so the sex hormones, like in a male body, these are androgens, testosterone, etc. In a female body, these are progesterone, estrogen, and DHEA, mostly. And but they're hormones that are building. They're the hormones that increase our tissues that promote healthy, vital function in the body. And then the stress hormones, they are yang. And we need a certain amount of healthy stress hormones. Stress hormones are like cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, all the ones, adrenaline. These are the ones that are creating a boost of energy, a sprint when you need it. It is the fight or flight response. It's the neurochemicals that get released when you go into a fight or flight response. And those are needed at times. But those are very yang. So they're very much under this category of catabolic or depleting hormones because they take energy. They initiate your body into action and into burning up its fuel sources. So the stress hormones and the sex hormones are the two kind of opposing characters of this dynamic dance of hormonal harmony that we need to understand how to bring into harmony, how to effectively do this dance. So what happens is that we override, because of a solar, yang, masculine nature, we override our prompts, our inner prompts to rest, to eat. Eating is a yin practice. Rest is a yin practice. Laying on the biomat or the phi mat is a yin practice. Laying on the couch, sitting on the couch with your feet up, reading a book is a yin practice. Taking a Epsom salt bath and putting oil on your skin, yin practice. Doing meditation where you dump a list of things out of your mind and you put it aside, and then you deliberately choose to not think about those things so that you can just be and smell the flowers. This is a yin practice. This is yin ways of being. The exercise, going to school, driving around town, running errands, working, teaching, contributing, facilitating, whatever it is that you do actively in your life, are yang practices. And you need both, right? Because we can't do only yin all the time unless, and it wouldn't be all the time, but unless you need a whole season of yin because a good portion of years or decades of your life was very yang. You might need a season of yin to just completely restore and rejuvenate things. But if you override the inner prompt to move and exercise, then you get symptoms of excessive yin, which is growths and cysts and tumors. These are excessive yin. If you have excess production of estrogen in your body, or phytoestrogens or xenoestrogens exposure, this increases growth in the body. Or you put on weight, or you have, whatever, what is considered by doctors like hypometabolism. There's the energy is not being utilized, so therefore weight is gained, or there's water retention. These are all signs of excessive yin, or excessive heaviness and fatigue and sleepiness, lethargy, apathy that comes with apathy. But sometimes when we're too much on the yang side and we're just super depleted and strung out and anxious and overdoing it, over exercising, thinking I need exercise for energy, but really you just probably need sleep. We sometimes will experience fatigue, lethargy, etc., but it comes from burnout, from a complete depletion of the yin hormones versus an actual true yin excess. So this is when, someone goes into like a crash, an adrenal crash. And that's, again, if a significant amount of time is spent in overstimulating, stressful situations. So even if there are things outside of your control that are seasonably stressful for the season of life that you're in, with your family, with your work, with your other situations, we have to remember when the more of a stressful situation you're in, the more high of a priority it is to do yin practices to rejuvenate, to replenish, and to restore your body's sex hormones. Does that make sense? So this yin yang dance is just an essential one. So when it comes down to it, we want to restore our natural rhythms of life in our body. We want to make sure we are focusing on the main pillars of health. The first two foundational pillars of health is food, sleep, and the management and exercise. So these are the first pillars. And yes, Joanne is going to rest. She says, thanks so much. I have to go rest. And I love your enthusiasm, and we bless you and send you off into your rest. And you can catch the rest of this on recording. I'm so happy you're taking care of yourself. Good job. Thanks for sharing that with us. So we need to prioritize our eating and our nourishment. So a huge aha when it comes to the transition that women go through, perimenopause and menopause. So in the US, it's very common, or in maybe the westernized countries or world, if you will, it's very common to think of menopause and perimenopause as a curse. It's very common to think to have apprehension about going through that phase because it's so marked by significant, severe fluctuations in hormones, and the physical body experience of that can be really intense. But did you know that there are cultures in this world that still exist today that have zero, it's not even like menopause isn't even a thing that's even known about or talked about. Women still go through their transition where they no longer have children, but they have absolute zero symptoms of negative symptoms or experiences of it. And that comes down to how they live their life. Culturally in tune with a sense of belonging, a sense of spiritual connection. They're eating natural diet close to their native land, homelands. They don't have an expectation that they override all of their signals. There's a naturalness in the waxing and waning of energy levels and seasons in life. And therefore, they literally are able to maintain youthful sex hormones throughout their life. So they never dip down so low that they experience yang depletion or lungana depletion. And so that's very indicative of the main pillars of health in Ayurveda. What are you eating? What is your diet right now? Are you eating a colorful fruit and veggie full diet of primarily rainbow foods, fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, and really nutrient dense foods? Also foods that are building and nourishing to your hormones and to your tissues? Or are you eating kind of standard American diet, or are you eating when you're not hungry? Are you overeating? There's so many nuances there when it comes to diet. I won't be able to go into all of these today, but these are all things that we can continue talking about in future classes, community classes like this. And again, if you want just to get right to the heart of the matter and get personalized recommendations, I can share with you how to do that. I offer to our community here donation-based consultation. So you can book a time on my calendar and we can talk, and then we can figure out how to move you forward, after that with very specific recommendations. And so we got to look at the diet, like in a very detailed and nuanced way, what you're eating that promotes hormonal balance and that really nourishes the tissues from within in the deepest way and restores your natural appetite and restores your natural prompts so that, whatever disease pathology, in Ayurveda is called samprapti, whatever dis-ease process has been progressing, we can effectively reverse it. We can reverse it through cleansing protocols and then an upgrade to the diet. Just last month or a few weeks, just last month in early April, I led a kapha melt class. And kapha in this terminology is an excess buildup. We're talking about an excess buildup of yin and also an excess depletion, yang depletion. So I walked everyone through for 2 weeks. I walked everyone through specific recommendations on how to restore your natural appetite and how to upgrade your personalized nutritional needs so that you can be doing the protocol that's exactly nourishing to rebuild your hormones and all of that. So if any of you also want to get access to that, it's all been pre-recorded and everyone gets one-on-one consultation as a part of that program. So if that's something you're interested in, we can still have, just book the one-on-one session and let me know, and then we can personalize the cleanse for you. But what ended up happening with this kapha melt cleanse is a good majority of the people that joined actually didn't need to cleanse. They actually needed to rebuild their nourishment on the deepest levels. And so it ends up being a dance of, it's not just yin or just yang. We have to find the threads of more nuance that actually allow you to both enhance your body's natural cleansing mechanisms and simultaneously nourish the deep tissues and restore that ras. That ras in Ayurveda means like the juice, the juiciness, the foundation for your hormones and your feeling of clarity and calm and sense of wholeness and wholesomeness, and is the foundation for your energy levels and just feeling also stable moods and emotions, like healthy relationship to your emotions within. So that's another deep topic, this topic of food and how to support the body's cleanse mechanisms, and then how to restore your nutrients and from the deepest level of nourishment. And then we have the balance of the other two we mentioned, sleep and exercise, or rest and movement. It's the balance between energy out and energy in. So if you're not sleeping well, we need to get to the root of what's going on with your sleep, and let's restore that, because otherwise your body's always going to be in like a hyper vigilant yang state energetically. Like it's always going to have that anxiousness or that overwhelm or that kind of tunnel vision of that creates like a little bit of a survival need, which rapidly depletes the yin hormones, the sex hormones. So the more cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine that we have in our bloodstream going, adrenaline, the more we burn up and use our sex hormones. So it depletes them. One of the easiest ways to start restoring this in your body is to go to bed early, and is just to allow yourself, because everyone has a melatonin release around 8 p.m. at night. And if we override that, we actually are kicking our adrenal glands into hyperfunction and telling it to release all these stress hormones, which are yang hormones. And then we get what we feel like is a second wind, but it's actually not a second wind. It's not a healthy second wind. It's a credit card against our adrenal glands. It's a credit card that is depleting our yin in the grander scheme of things that needs to be repaid. It's a debt that needs to be repaid back. So by training our body to go to bed earlier and to follow the prompts of sleepiness, then it helps to really restore overall health and vitality and restore those sex hormones so that the balance comes more into a healthy yin and yang, and you'll get better sleep when you can go to bed earlier and wake up a little bit earlier. So 2 general recommendations for you so far that I've mentioned are rainbow plants, fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds, legumes, grains as your primary diet. Also, of course, hydration, decreasing coffee or recreational drugs and substances that also zap caffeine, and coffee are acidic and they zap your yin hormones. So, and they increase your stress hormones. So overall, reducing those things and then starting to really nourish and rebuild through the food substances that you take in, through the drinks that you take in. And then secondarily, sleep, going to bed earlier, waking up earlier, starting to work with some nuance there. Again, if you have sleep challenges, we can work on those one-on-one if you need specific recommendations for your situation. And then it's the balance between sleep and movement. So yes, exercise is important, but can you do exercise in a way that's not so depleting to you? Can you do exercise in a way that you breathe in and out of your nose primarily, not huffing and puffing out of your mouth? Because as soon as you're huffing and puffing in and out of your mouth, your body's releasing adrenaline. When you're breathing, nose breathing, your body's actually in more of a parasympathetic state. So you can build strength and endurance through nose breathing versus mouth breathing. So if you go to the gym or work out and you're huffing and puffing through the mouth, you are actually building up so much acidity in your body and stress hormones that deplete you. And so you want to exercise in a way that's restorative. And this is one of the reasons why yoga, especially like more gentle forms of yoga that is very meditative and doesn't focus just on the acrobatics, but focuses on the spirit connection and the breath and the meditation aspect, will help you come into a relationship with movement and energy output that is way more mindful and in sync with your body's unique needs at any given time. So food, nutrition, sleep, and movement or exercise, energy output and energy input. These are my first layers of recommendations for you today. And we will wrap up there just to make sure we honor the time period of today's class. We're just going over an hour now. So I want to make sure everyone has time to digest this information. And again, if you want to book a one-on-one donation-based consultation, you can do so at my calendar. It's calendly.com / the link will be below this video, calendly.com / Alicia Lynn, I think. I'm supposed to know that off the top of my head, I think. But I'll put it in the link below this video. And then if you're watching this live, I'll send it in an email to you so you have that. And then if you want to just email me because you're interested in more ongoing conversations and classes like this, please email me and let me know. hello@alicialyndiaz.com. hello@alicialyndiaz.com. And yeah, and I'm just very, very happy to connect with you all. And oh, someone was in the waiting room. And I'm sorry, B, if you missed class because I didn't see that you were in the waiting room. We're just wrapping up now. But I'll send an email with all those links. And then if any of you are interested specifically in like the nutritional reset as like an offering to, or as a thing to engage with to really rebuild your hormones in a beautiful way, then the Cuff and Melt cleanse is a really great program, and you get a consultation with both me and my mentor, a Vaidya, an Ayurvedic physician, and we personalize everything that you need to restore your hormones in a really complete and full way. So if you want to go through that, that's also an option for you. But please do let me know if you want to learn more about the hormonal balance. If you want me to go into deeper topics, just email me and let me know which topics around hormonal balance or correcting hormonal imbalance really interest you. So you just email me hello@alicialyndiaz.com. So I will see you next time. If you, most probably everyone who's here are already on my email list. So I send out these reminders for class each month. Next month, I'll start doing them in the morning, most likely again, instead of the afternoon. And so I'll send an email on next month's topic and also upcoming topics. So you can just visit my website, alicialyndiaz.com, and make sure you opt in there for one of the free gifts, and then you'll be on my email list, and then you'll get reminders about these classes, and you can be here live with us, and you'll also get the recordings. All right, lots of love, and we'll just sing our quick closing prayer. May all beings be benefited by our conversation today. I'm sending you all the love and prayers for returning to the wholeness within and the sweet spirit within each of your hearts. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay, love and blessings to you all. Thank you, Stacy, Gloria, Joanne, Marilyn. Blessings.